Hey guys, my name is Masha and I'm a designer and front-end developer. And in this tutorial, we're going to go over how to create a menu component, and we'll be using Chakra UI as inspiration, mainly just to know what kind of things we want our menu component to have. So before we get started, uh, we will actually need to create a new Figma file. And to do that, what you're gonna do is type in figma.new, assuming that you already have an account. And that's a very neat shortcut that will just allow you to create a new file. And now let's go over to the Chakras menu page. And we're just going to quickly look over at what kind of things we will want our menu component to have. So we'll definitely want a menu button, a menu item, a list of items. So let's just quickly write them down. Menu button, menu item, menu list. What else do we have? So as you can see, some of our menu lists can have a divider. So let's just add that. Divider. Ability to have a picture. And we also want to be able to just have an icon as our menu button. Um, and we also want to be able to have an icon next to the menu item. Here they also have an option to insert a command and to have it over to the right. I don't think we will add that for this tutorial, just to keep it relatively short, but pretty much the same principle would apply as adding an icon next to the left of the menu item. Okay, let's see if there is anything else. So another thing that we'll have here is that we will want an ability to group menu items in a group and have a title. And I think last thing here is that we want to be able to show menu items as selected. And looks like here they have two options. One is like a radio option where it's either or, and one is checkbox where you can select several items. So since the UI looks the same, it's not really going to matter for our Figma component. We'll add it anyway. Okay, so I think it's a pretty good list. Of course, you can go back and refer to this page, but this is just something to get us started. A couple more things to get us started is, first, I'm going to switch the Figma canvas background to white, just so it's a little bit easier to see. And we're also going to grab a couple colors to work with. And for that one, I'm actually just going to go into my file where I have the component completed and copy paste colors from here. So our first color is button color, button background. Our second one would be the stroke, just a little bit darker. And our third one is going to be a text color, which dark gray. So probably not the best color names, but doesn't really matter in the context of this tutorial. Okay, and the last thing is that you may want to have some icon set. You can either have it downloaded from Figma community. I'm just going to use phosphor icons and kind of every time we need one, search for one, copy paste it. So it's totally up to you. And now we can get started with our first component, which is going to be the menu button. So this one here. And to start, we're going to create a text layer. And let's say actions. And we'll apply our text color. And then we're going to go into phosphor icons. And let's find a carrot. Okay. Okay, we'll copy it as SVG. Oh wow, that's big. Okay, let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so now what I just did is that I took these two layers and I combined them together using auto layout. And well, just the spacing, and let's add our button fill. So as you can see here, we will want to add some padding. Let's do vertical, like 6 pixels on each side, and horizontal 8 pixels. Okay, so now there's a little bit more space. And now let's add a border radius. Okay, so that's pretty much our menu button. Now we'll want to turn it into an actual component. So first we'll rename it. Let's call it menu underscore button. And then you can turn it into a component. And the second thing that we're going to do is that in our list, we also had that we want to have only an icon as our button. So what we're going to do is we'll use variant property. And from here, we'll just copy paste our existing component. And we can also apply auto layout inside the main component set itself, just so it's all nicely organized. And here, we're going to delete the text layer. So line it to the right. And then we're going to go to our phosphor icons. Let's add a different icon. The last part here would be to rename our property from property 1 to, we can say, content. And our first one is going to be text plus icon. Our second one is icon only. So Using a variant is just one way to create this second icon only option. Another thing that you could use is a boolean. For that, you would just pretty much set the visibility of the text layer. Personally, for this use case, I like having the using the variant, because we do just end up with two component variants, and we don't really have a lot of combinations to deal with, but it's totally up to you which option you want to use. Okay, so this is our menu button. Let's actually see how it behaves to make sure there's nothing weird about it. Okay, so that looks fine. Okay, so the second one that we're going to create is going to be a menu item, which is kind of just this one item here. And the same principle would apply. You start with a text layer, and we'll call it menu item. And for this one, we will apply auto layout right away, even though right now it's just one text layer. And we'll change the padding just a little bit. And from here, we'll also rename this, say menu underscore item, and we'll turn it into a component as well. So now what we can do, we can take an instance of this component, and we'll use a couple of these instances to create a component that's going to be the whole list itself. So one thing that I wish you would be able to do in Figma, but you currently can't, is to be able to create a list item where you can specify a number of items that you want every time you use that instance. So right now, for example, we would not be able to create a list component, and then when we use it, we say, oh, give me a list with 6 menu items or 10 menu items. In order to be able to do that, we would essentially have to create a component and then create a bunch of variants that are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it does get a little bit tedious, and you can end up with a lot of variants, but that's the way that we have to do it, at least for now. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to start with just 2 menu items, and I already applied auto layout to them, no spacing, and we will rename it as menu list and turn it into a component. So from here, what we're going to do is, before we create any more variants, I'm going to add a 4 pixel border radius, and we will add a 1 pixel stroke. And another thing that we're also going to do is that we'll set the menu items to fill the container. This is just so that when you are working with an instance of the component, and if you resize it, you pretty much want the menu items to resize together with the list component itself. So now that we have added our styles, we can add a couple more variants that will have different number of items inside the menu list. So to do so, we're going to select our menu list component, and then we're going to go to properties, click variant, and now we created a component set, which just has one component. So we're going to copy paste to create our second variant, and we can once again apply auto layout, and Just gonna format it. And actually one thing that we're going to do is add a fill. Just set it to white. And from here we can start adding our variants. So here we have 2, then 3, 4, 7. Okay, so it's a little bit manual, but since there are only 7 variants, I think that's fine. And from here we can use a shortcut. We're going to select all of this, do Command R, and then we'll write num of items, and then we will add a number, and we'll start with 2 because that's our first one. And let's see if it actually worked. Okay, so we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now let's test it out. We're going to find the menu list. Okay, and let's see, we want 5. Okay, so that works. That works. Now let's revisit our list and see what we already have done. Okay, so we have the menu button with or without the text. We have a menu item and menu list. Now we can move on to adding several enhancements. So we will actually skip the divider one for now, and we will start with the icon and then the picture. So to prep us for adding an icon, what we're actually going to do is I'll create a page that we'll call icons, and I'll want to add a couple of icon components. Again, if you already have a set, you can use that set. But since I don't have anything yet, I'm going to quickly do it. All right, so I added a couple of icons here just to have something to use for the examples. And now we're going to return to our main page and go back to the menu item component. And now this is actually where auto layout comes into play, because the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to choose an icon, let's say plus, and we'll just drop it here and it will neatly fall into place. So here I have it set to 4 pixel spacing between the items. It's center vertically aligned. And now we're going to create our first property for the menu item component, which is going to be a Boolean. We'll call it icon, and we'll actually set it to false because icon is something that's optional, and for the most part we're probably not going to have menu items with the icon, so we don't want it to always be there. So after we create this property, as you can see here, we have a icon alert that says that this property is not used within component. And the reason for that is that we didn't connect this icon layer to the property itself. So we're going to do that now by selecting this icon and then going here over to the layer section on the right. We'll click this icon and set it to the icon property. And now, as you can see, the icon disappeared because by default, its visibility is set to false. But now if we go to our instance of menu list component, we can toggle this, and as you can see, the icon appears. And we can also do it for several items at a time. And one thing here is that if we wanted to swap this icon for some other one, you can just click here and select an icon from your icon set. Okay, so let's toggle this off and return to our list. So now we have an ability to have an icon next to a menu item. And the next one, we're going to add a picture, which is going to be the same principle as with the icon. We're going to, uh, first we'll create like this ellipse layer. And I think 24 by 24 is good. And from here, we're going to go to fill and we'll set the fill to image. We'll go, I have a couple of cat pictures ready here. Okay, and we will adjust our filler image or placeholder image. And here, once again, we don't want this image to be visible by default. Oops. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to create another Boolean property, but this time I'm going to show you a different way to create it. So instead of creating the property first and then applying the layer to it, we're going to create it from the layer itself. So we'll select our image, and then we're going to, again, go to the right, go to the layer section, and instead of selecting a property which we don't yet have, we're going to create one. We're going to call it image, and we're going to set it to false. So now, same principle as with the icon, you can go and you can have an image. I guess you can also have an icon, but I hope you don't have to have both of this at once because it starts to get a little noisy. But yeah, here you go. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is that we want an ability to have a divider between menu items. And for this one, we're going to turn our menu item from one component into a component set. And we're going to add our first variant. And this is going to be the variant that's going to have a little top border sitting right here, which is going to function as a divider. So this is just one way to create a divider between menu items. You can create an actual line. Personally, I like this way because it makes the management of the menu list component much easier. So this is what we're going to do here. And so what we're going to do, we're going to add a stroke, and then we'll set it to top only, and then we'll apply our stroke color. And the last thing is, you see now we have here property one, which we'll want to rename. Oops. We'll say divider. This one is no, and this one is yes. Now we can test this out. Divider. Okay, so this works. One thing that happens here is, as you can see, the menu item is feels a little bit too tight to the divider, especially compared to the second menu item. So what we're going to do is, for menu items that have a divider, we'll add a little bit more spacing at the top, maybe even 10 pixels. So as you can see, that definitely fixes the problem for the menu item that has the divider, but it still feels pretty tight for the menu item that sits at the top. So this is one of the pitfalls I guess, of this method is that for each instance of list item where you are using a divider, you also want to adjust the spacing. And it's fine if you remember to do that, but yeah, it's definitely not an ideal way. Looking at this though, there's definitely one other small enhancement that we can make to the menu list item, is that as you can see, the top and the top and the bottom menu items appear like really close to the edge. So what we can do is that we can add just a little bit of vertical spacing to the menu list itself. So it just has maybe a little bit more room to breathe. But aside from that, we have our menu list with our menu items, and we now have an ability to set a divider, an icon, or an image. And yeah, sometimes when you resize components, you have to adjust these properties to make sure it still looks fine. Okay, so we have a picture icon. So we added our divider, and now we can move on and create a title. So to create a title for menu item groups, it's really just going to be a different text style for this layer here. And our titles will also have an ability to have a divider sitting on top. So what we're going to do, we're just going to copy paste these two layers, and then we will select these two text layers, and let's say we will make them a little smaller, and I guess we can make it slightly lighter like this. And we can also apply our dark gray text color to our actual menu items. Okay, and the last thing here is, once again, we're going to create a new property, and we'll name it title. This one is going to be no, and this one is going to be yes. Okay, so now if we change this to title, as you can see, the styling slightly changes. And okay, let's adjust this. This one doesn't have a divider, and this one does have one. Okay. So here you go, you have your title, you have an option to add a divider. So now the last thing that we have left is that we want to have an ability to check items. And instead of creating a whole other variant and boolean, we can utilize our existing icon property to achieve this. So we'll just have to do one little tweak to this. So let's say we want a checked list. We're going to toggle on our icon property. Then we'll select and swap our icons for a check. And from here, let's say we don't want one of these items to be checked. So if we toggle the icon off, the text itself will obviously shift over to the left, and it's not what we're looking for, and obviously it just doesn't look good. Instead of that, we're going to keep it on, but we will select the icon here and we will set the opacity to 0. This way our items are still nicely aligned, but the icon is not visible. So again, if you find yourself that you're using this functionality of like checking items on and off, and you really want to have a separate variant or boolean, you can implement it. Personally, I like to find a balance between the maintenance of component as much as what kind of options it has in terms of its use. So in this case, I would just utilize the icon boolean and kind of hack it by turning the opacity off. Okay, so now we have the ability to check items, and the last, probably the most important step of creating any component is to actually test it. So what I did is that I grabbed a couple of screenshots with Chakra UI examples, and now I'll go ahead and try to recreate it using the component that we just made. So let's start with this first one. We're going to drag and drop our menu button. It's the same name, actions, and then the menu list. So they have 5 items here. Let's set it to 5. So this one is pretty straightforward. Let's combine it. Example 1. Second one, file. So this one has a divider, 4 items, new file, new window. This one is going to have a divider, so we'll also add a little extra space to the one before it. Open. So our third example actually has just an icon as the menu button. So we'll set it to icon only. And this one has 4 items with icons. And again, we didn't do the command one, but it would be the same principle as icon or image. New tab, new window. And let's update these icons. I guess these are a little bit different than what they have, but I think it's fine for this tutorial. And then our next one, interesting, they don't even have an icon here, but we'll keep one in. And here they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 items, and 2 of these items are titles, and we're going to have a divider above a title. Okay. That's example 4. Oh, that's a cute one. Your cats. So for this too, we're going to have image. So we can add a different image from this instance. Okay, let's keep them in the center. Okay, that's, I believe that's example 5. And the last one is a checked list. I guess here we can say something like filter, and the number of items is 7. Okay, now I just caught a bug in my component. Okay, now there are 7 items. So this is going to be titles, order. This one is going to have a divider. We'll adjust this spacing. And these ones are going to have an icon. And we want only one of this to be checked. And then we also don't want this one to be checked. Okay, so that's our last example. So yeah, the component itself works for all of these examples. There are definitely a couple of things that we could have added to it, kind of like, first we can have just a regular button without the icon. We could also add hover states, even though that would require some tweaking for how we handle the divider. But aside from that, I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to add a link to the completed Figma file with this component to the description of this video. So if you just want to grab this one, please do so. Otherwise, you can just kind of work through the tutorial. And yeah, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Let me know if there are any other component tutorials that you would like to see. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.